Welcome back. We're thrilled you could join us for another episode of Technically Edinburgh. We are a brand new podcast created by technicians, about technicians, and for, well, everyone. Have you ever wondered what technicians do behind the scenes? What does that job title even mean? And what on earth is a technician commitment? We'll be chatting to staff across the university to find out why technicians are so essential to our work. We can't wait to get started, so grab a drink, get comfy, and let's get Technically Edinburgh.
Hello and welcome to Technically Edinburgh, a podcast for and about technicians at the University of Edinburgh. My name is Lee Murphy.
And I'm Charli Corcoran. Our guest for this episode is Lindsay Jarvis. Lindsay is a clinical skills teaching technician at the Royal Dick School of Veterinary Studies. She's been working at the University of Edinburgh since 2018 and has recently been working towards the Associate Fellow status with the Higher Education Academy. You might recognise Lindsay's name from last Technician Week as she featured on our social media, and we planned to chat an Instagram Live event last year, but we ended up not being able to, so I'm extra excited to have Lindsay join us on the podcast today. Hi Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Hiya.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Can you tell us what is your current role at the university and what is it that you do?
So I work in the clinical skills department. I'm the clinical skills technician, teaching technician, and I am responsible for setting up all the practical classes, exams, it's basically all years of the veterinary teaching programme. And I also get to sort of help out in other bits and bobs as well.
And what does a typical day look like for you, Lindsay?
Well, there is no such thing as a typical day. I think you might hear sort of technicians say that all the time. It depends if there's any classes on. So if there's a class on, it's setting up what we need for the class. If the class involves live dogs, we need to do a bit of prep for that in advance, making sure we've got dogs in, we've got the kennels ready for them, they've all got the profile. Some classes use more consumables than others, so you've always got to check you've got plenty of consumables in. We have lots of exams that run throughout the whole year, so it's often checking that they're booked in the room for a start and what sort of stations we're going to use, checking we've got consumables for them. And there's always other, like I mentioned, bits and bobs, there's always other sort of different things, whether it's helping out in another department, or you can be asked to do quite a lot of different things, to be honest. So there's no such thing as a typical day and no such thing as a typical week, to be honest.
I agree. I think that's something we'll hear quite a lot from technicians. I need to circle back to the live dogs part of that.
Okay. Does
that happen often? That sounds very exciting.
Yes, it's actually, we're getting more and more live dog classes. I was going to say our typical year group sort of sits around maybe 120 for the first and second year, up to 180 for year 3 and year 4. So we can only work with small group numbers. So our classes are repeated quite a few times. And they're not always consecutively, so sometimes you have it on a Monday, then the next one might be a Friday, and then you might not have one for another week. So I was going to say we have live dogs in quite a lot of the times. I mean, at least once a week.
Do you have kennels on site?
Yeah, we have kennels. We have 9 kennels within our labs.
So I've been lucky enough to be shown around Lindsay's work. And the live kennels was a surprise to me, but even more of a surprise was your use of stuffed animals.
Oh, cool!
Teddy bears.
Yeah. I should emphasise that we're not using live dogs for everything. I'm just going to come out and say this. I have a large toy box collection. I have a lot of stuffed animals, and we buy sort of some expensive mannequins, but we also buy toys from IKEA and kids' toy stores, and we modify them in ways. Lee, I remember you coming up here, and it's one model after another, and you can lose lots of time.
Those IKEA dogs are perfect for that. The big giant toys, they'd be great.
It really surprised me. You would need to teach people, how to handle animals. If I thought about it, it'd be obvious, but actually kind of seeing it, you're taught how to handle a dog, and you obviously not start with a proper dog. You would start with a model of a dog.
Yeah, we do sort of most of our teaching. They start off, our students start off on models before they move to live dogs. so that the tutors can be like sure that they're like safe handling the models before they move to dogs.
That makes total sense. Yeah, you're right. Now you think about it, it makes total sense, but it's not something I would have thought about before.
And what's the favourite thing about your role?
I would definitely say the variety. I should probably mention when I started this role, I wasn't a fan of dogs. I'm more of a cat person.
Oh, that's a big...
So to be around dogs, it's not quite every day, but at least a couple of times a week, that was totally different for me. And just, I think it's the opportunity to do different things there as well. 1 minute you're like setting up a class, next thing you're like people and money ordering, and then you've got something fun like, you're actually working with a dog. So it's definitely the variety is my favourite thing within this role.
I liked your expression when you said people and money there.
I feel I needed to sort of mention that in a way.
Do you work with other species, or is it just dogs you use in classes?
For my classes, it is just dogs. We do have sort of an exotics department here at Easter Bush, but that's sort of looked after and run by different technicians. I do get to go down there and help with some of the handling classes, so that is quite fun.
That's cool. So you didn't start out as a clinical skills technician, did you?
No.
Can you tell us a bit about your background and some of your previous roles?
I worked in retail for quite a number of years, working my way up through there. I think I was like supervisor at one point, and then I started the university in 2018 as a lab support technician in the Roslin Institute. So I worked there just had like what would have been my 9-year anniversary. So yeah, so I worked on and off there for 7 years. And throughout that time, I had a couple of secondments. They were the same. It was the same secondment, but it was sort of split over a couple of years before I was successful in getting this role in January 2022.
So you went from a laboratory support assistant then to a teaching technician on secondment. What was that like? Was that a big change?
It was, because I think my lab support role that's the Roslin Institute is research, so I was sort of assisting the research scientists and the PhD students, mainly with sort of like their media and their waste. We used to make up like quite a lot of reagents for them. We did sort of like the glassware and the washing. We made up sort of petri dishes for them. So it was quite repetitive. That was sort of like that you do the same thing sort of every day, every week. Moving over to my secondment was a microbiology technician. So it was, you still did a little bit, like of making up reagents, making up plates, but you did like a lot more with them. And as the role was like a teaching technician, you were involved with students and not just sort of like helping them as like, like you get this here or we can do this for you, but actually showing them how to do techniques. So I had to, I should say I've got a degree in biomedical science. We did a little microbiology, but that was quite a number of years ago, so I had kind of forgotten some of it. So I did have to like relearn quite a lot of it again. And it was quite a big step up. Just thinking about my secondment, I didn't actually see it coming at all. I think it was just a normal day in we call it CSU, Central Servicing Unit, so we service the whole of Roslin. It was just like a normal day there, and the next minute your line manager calls you into a meeting, and then you're sort of hit with you're going to be off on a secondment.
Okay, so it wasn't something you specifically chose or applied for.
No.
You were sent there. That's cool.
Yeah.
Bit of a shock though.
Very much so. Yeah. Did not see that coming. Just
Must have been nice. Like your line manager clearly had like positive thoughts. She trusted in your ability to do the role.
Yeah. I mean, I was sitting down when I was told, and I think if I hadn't, I might have fallen over. But I think I left the meeting with more questions than I don't actually think I said anything. I think I just sat there and nodded, and then I just left with so many questions, and I was like, okay, this is happening. It was only supposed to be like a short secondment. I think I was told initially sort of like 6 to 8 weeks. 9 months later, I was just kind of like, wow, it's been a journey.
I'm not 100% sure what a secondment is. Can you explain, just in case anyone else is out there like me going, I think I know what that is, but I'm not sure.
So like the department that I was moving to, they had someone who was off on sick, but they didn't actually sort of really know how how long it was going to be. And it was just to sort of cover some, like, initially it started off as covering like this person's classes, but then I think as sort of things went on, I was going to say my second secondment, I actually, like, it was advertised. It was like an advertised role, and I knew about it, so we had to go through an interview process. I think that the first one, nobody really knew what was happening, how long this person would be off sick, and I think it was just supposed to be short-term cover for the sort of then and now that just kind of continued.
So secondments have been important then, I guess, in your career progression.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I did a 1 year secondment, and that was the one I sort of applied for, and that was through 2020. So, I mean, everybody knew that, like, just the kind of world went mad at that time, and we had to put a lot of new things in places to sort of allow teaching to go ahead, in particular, like, numbers as well. So, like, even though I had, like, my own role, we were actually helping out with quite a lot of other different things. And one of the things I was sort of helping out with was the actual technician who was in the role I'm in just now. She went on to retire a couple of years later, but I got to sort of help out with, like, their exams. They had to change the whole format of the exams, so that's how I actually got to meet sort of who was my line manager, and I got to sort of help out with her a couple of times of a week, and that sort of introduced me to this clinical skills, what you did up here. And like, after I sort of finished my secondment, I did sort of go back, but I was having sort of conversations with the line manager here, and she was very grateful for my help throughout the time.
Yeah, it must be hard going back after a secondment, especially if you've really enjoyed it and it's something you want to do, and then to go back to your team. That must be a difficult transition. The
first time it wasn't actually that difficult. It was quite difficult the second time. Although when I did go back, I probably changed in myself. I went back a lot more confident. Maybe I took, like, the skills I learned on my secondment across the road. So I think that benefited everyone. My role in sort of CSU, it was so busy that you never really had time to sort of sit and think. So I suppose it's like times like now when you reflect back and you're like, I didn't really have time to sort of process. I've just come off a secondment, you're just sort of straight back in it. When I went back in 2021, again, it was still quite weird because we were still sort of in, like, sort of lockdown phase. So you didn't necessarily see everyone in the institute. You would maybe see the same people every day. So you sort of developed more relationships there. And I mean, it was crazy, I think, is an understatement during 2021. But yeah, it was difficult for a while.
And you mentioned, like in our pre-podcast catch-up, that your secondments involved moving from a grade 3 to a grade 5 role.
Yeah.
How do you think that shift impacted your career development and maybe your confidence?
When I was initially told I was going on secondment and you would be working with grade 5s, I mean, I think it's probably natural to think, can I actually do this? And I know that when I went back after the first time, I was actually applying for jobs and I had a really good interview. In a way, I felt like I was ready for a grade 4, like I was at that level. But at the same time, to not dismiss looking at grade 5 jobs because you have worked at that level. And when I went back in 2021, I was actually looking at both grade 4 and grade 5, and I did feel that, like, I was more than ready for like any of those roles. But I mean, at first it definitely felt like a huge step up, and my role today is a grade 5, and it did, I don't like to get sort of hung up on grades. It is just, there's always sort of like a blurry line. Different campuses will have your grade 5s, you do different things, or your grade 4s. It's always a bit of a merge. But I did have a bit of imposter syndrome, I think, for a while.
And what do you see as the main differences then between that grade 3 and the grade 5?
I think with grade 3, you don't really, you always have to sort of run most of your decisions through line management. You sort of know yourself when a decision is, like, quite big, and you can't just sort of, like, run with it. While as a grade 5, there has been sort of times where I'm like, well, like, I've asked, but no one's really sort of got back to me, so I'm just going to make this decision, and you know, I feel a bit more confident in like justifying why we went with this. And I think my grade 3 role was more like physically challenging, while I think my current role is more like mentally challenging. There's a lot more to learn. While there is repetition, there's definitely a lot less repetition. You are doing a lot of like different stuff, new stuff all the time.
And what about that change then as well, from being a technician based in a lab compared to a teaching technician? What are the main differences there, do you think?
I can sort of say like my role in CSU was a lot sort of like machinery, pipettes, tips, lab equipment. I mean, my current role is like clinical skills, so it's absolutely none of that. I'm working with like needles and syringes and veterinary equipment, so that itself has been like a huge difference. I'm not from like a vet background. I'm not a nurse. I'm not an ACA. I've not been sort of like a vet technician, so everything is new, and so learning things about like, I didn't realise we had like loads of different needle sizes and different syringes and different types of syringes. So that itself has been quite different. It's a whole new world away actually from where I was. And sort of like, especially like with the mannequins as well, sort of often like, you know, if you can get things that have like landmarks, and then I'm like, what's a landmark? What am I looking for? So it's been a huge change.
What is a landmark?
So it's things like, you know, like landmarks on limbs. So rather, like, I know we're on a podcast here, but it's like I'm literally showing someone an animal here.
Lindsay's got a toy dog.
Yeah, toy dog from a listening dog. Just sort of different things, like especially in like paws as well.
So like just marks that you can use for identifying.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have to get a picture of you for the podcast holding that dog.
Yeah, I think behind me I've got like more as well.
That's amazing. I love it.
So you're obviously doing really well in your career. But where do you think you're going to go next? You know, as you're, you know, kind of continue within your current role and maybe thinking kind of broader career as a technician?
I don't want to sound too ambitious here, but I mean,
go for it. No, ambitious. All the ambition.
Okay. I'd really like, you know, it's currently just myself as a clinical skills technician, but we're expanding, and I know some of the long-term plans are we're going to need more staff, and you know, sort of the idea of maybe moving into line management. I already feel I sort of look after our lab with sort of what's going on and what classes are in, but you know, is there sort of a room to sort of expand with that and sort of help out with exams as well? But you know, there could be sort of potential to move into sort of like running these exams or sort of moving on to examining. I think there's quite a lot there's like potential to be quite a lot that I can do there. I think it's just sort of like funneling it down to sort of one or two things that I really just want to sort of focus on.
That's great. It sounds like that is scope for some career development for you going forward. That's brilliant. When you were a laboratory support assistant, like way back, did you have any involvement in teaching then, or has that been a thing that's come about since you moved, you know, since you went on to comment and moved into this role?
Yeah, when I was a lab support assistant, I didn't sort of really do any teaching, apart from if we had like a new start or we had a few interns, but apart from that, no.
Is it funny, enjoying it, like the teaching side?
It's a bit scary at times. I much prefer teaching on a smaller scale than having, say, 30 students staring at you, because, yeah, I mean, like, you look at some of the faces and you're like, can they understand me? Am I being clear? Do they think I'm too geeky? It's like a lot. You just best not to think about if they're what they're thinking of you.
Look directly above them and
yeah.
Eye contact, but not really. Yeah, that's a lot of people to teach at once, but it's a good experience, I imagine, though, to have.
It's almost like public speaking in a way when you've got like that many people there. So yeah, it is always a good skill.
Do you have a lot of interaction with the students then? You say you're teaching big classes and small classes, and do you have one-on-one teaching or labs, or how does it work?
I was helping out once it was like a year one class, so that was quite a lot. It was like 20 or 30 students, and you were like showing them a technique. Normally it is much smaller scale in clinical skills. We sort of break all the students up into small groups of like 3 or 4, and they go around the stations, and if you're looking after a station, you can be teaching in there. I often sort of help. We have a self-directed learning space, which is an area where there are no academics in there. We set the stations up after the classes so the students can come along and practice. And so I look after that room and help set it up. And don't like the phrase cleaning up, but I am sort of responsible for keeping it tidy. And during periods of exams, you can get sort of students, they do ask quite a few like one-to-one questions. So I do a little bit of that.
So you've been working towards your associate fellow status through the Higher Education Academy. Can you tell us a bit more about that process of attaining that status and what challenges you've had?
AFHEA, which was through the HEA, it's a lot of letters here.
So many letters.
The associate fellow I don't like the term the bottom, but it is sort of like the lowest level, and it is designed for people who are like new to teaching or sort of teaching is not their main role. I should say my line manager actually runs the section for Edinburgh University, and I remember on one of my secondments, the girl I was sharing the office with, she was going through her AFHE process, so she talked me through a little about it, but I think at that time it was just like, yep, that's not for me right now. And I joined the September programme last year. I felt I'd been in the role for sort of 18 months and I'd done some teaching, and I thought that I sort of had enough to go for it. And they ask you to write sort of 2 blogs, and they're looking at sort of different areas of activity, whether it's like designing and learning, sort of actual teaching, support and guidance, feedback. So I thought I had enough. Well, I should say I have got my AFHEA as a few months ago.
Yay! Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I think at the time it's quite a big. It sort of seemed like quite a lot, even though it's sort of shortened down. You just write a couple of blogs, and you have to make sure you sort of reference professional values and core knowledges. But the way it's sort of wrote is very reflective, which anyone from a science background knows it's sort of quite descriptive. You give the facts. Nobody really sort of bothers about how you felt about how you got these facts. Well, with AFHE, it's all about how you felt about these processes, what went wrong, what you did right, how you know it went wrong, and how you know it was right, and what you would do in the future. So, I mean, to start with, you had to sort of like change the way you write away.
Sounds very internally reflective, Lee. You really need to dig deep and think about how your day's gone, but from a very different perspective of how you normally would think about how your day's gone. That sounds challenging. And
the word count as well, because I thought, this isn't going to be too hard. But then I thought, you've only got 700 words, so it's like you're trying to be concise. So I was like, our programme started in September, and I think submission was like the end of February. And you write your blogs, and then it goes to like a mentor within the university. You, as a sort of applicant, you don't get to know who your mentor is, and they give you sort of feedback, and like you make your changes, and then you sort of resubmit for February and March. Like, I make it sound so easy, but there's so much in the middle of it that you end up doing.
How much did you do in your own time, and how much were you able to do during work time?
I actually kind of found I preferred doing it in my own time. I sometimes, like, even though my line manager encouraged me to sort of set aside time in my calendar to sort of do it, but I often just found I was just not in the right headspace, not being able to sort of like write reflectively, or just thinking too negatively, or just not being able to put words on the paper. There's quite a few things I want to sort of mention about it, is that I found out that like one of our other technicians was on the programme as well. So sort of throughout our time on the course, we actually met up a few times. We were reading each other's blogs, giving each other feedback as well. We all did that in work time, so that was really good, quite supportive as well. And I submitted in February, but I actually didn't get it first time. I had to, I was given sort of feedback. They didn't like one of my blogs. They didn't feel it sort of reached the correct level for the activity. And I was recommended to actually redo the whole blog in 4 weeks. So I think I had a few meetings with this other technician, like with our line manager, of how we could go around doing that, and I actually did most of it outside of work. I just felt that was better for me.
So you resubmitted, and then you passed on that second Tense, yeah.
That's amazing. It must have been, I think I would be quite downhearted at first if, you put all this work in and then they're saying, no, you need to redo that. How did you manage to stay motivated to get it done?
I mean, I was like, when I think I saw the email and then didn't really read it properly. I was just sort of like, I knew I hadn't got it, but I didn't really read why. And I think as I was sort of reading it, I was like, it's a lot of work. 4 weeks. It is a lot. It is and it isn't a lot of time. It was during our busiest time. We had like a lot of exams coming up, and I mean, part of me was like, I actually don't know where I'm going to get the time from. I think probably I panicked the first time as well, and I was like, I'm not going to lie. I actually thought about maybe shelving it and going again next the next September, but I think I just had to like forget about it. Go away. I had a really good meeting with my line manager to sort of give like I could have just changed a couple of sort of lines, but I thought it would just benefit to just redo the whole thing. And I think after I had that meeting, I sort of went away, did a little bit of writing outside of work, and then it just kind of all fell into place. And I was sort of thinking, you've spent so long on this. Like it was on my appraisal from like the start of like that year, and I was like, well, not done all this work just to kind of have like a tantrum in a way and not bother finishing it. And I kept a sort of copy of like each draft I'd done. So like my first draft in like October to when I sort of submitted it for the mentor to my final one and to the one where it got accepted, and it was quite nice to sort of, you could see the changes and you could see the improvement. And I'm just actually really glad I continued with it and I didn't sort of just, throw my toys out the pram.
I mean, when you look back at, that second blog that you had to resubmit then, I mean, it sounds like it was the right decision that, you rewrote it, you did something that was much better, that you were very proud of, you've kind of learned from that. But I think it's very difficult to deal with rejection, if we're not used to getting rejection very often.
Yeah, in the moment it can be very... I think I'd be the same. I'd have read like the first line and shut the email down and gone somewhere else. Yeah.
I think, as more of these opportunities open up for technicians, whether it's submitting grants or papers or, going for these qualifications, it is a whole new skill set we have to learn about how we deal with rejection. And I think a lot of that just comes from experience and talking to others. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that story, Lindsay. It's really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure there are people listening who are interested in or have been thinking about going for it. So that would be really great for them.
Has it improved your practice? Is it worthwhile doing all the effort you put in?
We're in the middle of our summer break just now, so we haven't actually had much opportunity to do any teaching. But I know like one of my blogs was actually, that was something I was actually very new to. And I think I felt that one was quite negative at the time because I was sort of like writing it as I was getting ready to do it the first time solo, dreading it at the same time. Well, I think now I'm actually kind of looking forward to that. As we're getting ready to go into our new semester, we've got new classes, and I think my first thing was like, I actually want to be in on that. Like we're doing so much in this class here that there's something I can help with, and I think it's actually kind of like motivated me to do a bit more teaching because it was probably the one part of my job where I didn't feel the most confident in, and if you gave me the opportunity to not do it, I would have probably taken it. But now I feel I actually want to do a bit more.
That's great. So going through the process has really helped improve your confidence and get you more engaged with the teaching side of your role, which is fantastic. And do you think, you said this one was the entry level, so do you think you might go a step higher and carry on with these?
I think I'm a good 3 or 4 years away from that, but I mean, looking at it, there are things that I'm already starting to sort of touch on. It is sort of, I think I maybe need to sort of look at it again in sort of 2 years' time, see how close I am, how far away, sort of there are other bits I need to work on more. I'm not ruling it out, but we do sort of, they need mentors for sort of the new upcoming sort of group of students in AFHA, so I have put my name forward for that. So, in a way, I'm still giving back.
That's amazing. That's a good, like you say, 3 to 4 years away, but it's good that you're thinking already, 3 to 4 years, it'll be something that you could be interested in doing.
So it's not the first time we've met, is it, Lindsay?
No.
We were paired together as part of the mentoring scheme organised by the Edinburgh Technical Collaboration. Can you tell us about that mentoring scheme?
So I was going to say I didn't actually go to like the launch event. I think a couple of my colleagues did, so I heard about it through there. Looked up sort of the emails, and it was a chance to sort of join up with a sort of more senior member of staff, not necessarily with Edinburgh University, but with universities across, I think it's the Central Belt or just Edinburgh, to sort of meet up and sort of discuss, I think as a mentee, it's sort of more sort of where I see myself going, sort of problems, issues I have, and I think at the time I signed up, I wasn't. It's not fair to say I wasn't in a good place in my role, but I was definitely, like, I could see issues and I wanted to sort of work through them, and I didn't really know. I thought having a mentor actually would be quite good, someone to talk to, or someone to give me some advice as well. So I stopped overthinking things, and I think I was matched with you, Lee. It was January 2022. No, 23.
23, yeah.
And what did you get out of mentoring? Did you find it was a useful experience?
I did, yes. I mean, first off, it was like, Lee, you work at Edinburgh University, so it was actually quite nice to find to see another sort of campus as well. I am quite nosy, and it was good to sort of chat to someone senior as well. I still do feel sort of like quite new, to sort of like a technician role, especially in my current role. So it was good to sort of chat through some things. It improved my confidence quite a lot as well. Just like, Lee, when you came over to Easter Bush to sort of like show you around the lab, that was sort of like, now I sort of seem to do that for everybody. I enjoy giving lab tours. So in a way it was like, I feel I got quite a lot out of it. And I know in the event, I keep getting my days and my years all muddled up. I think it was December last year where they launched again for this year. I actually stood up and gave a chat about my sort of mentor experience to sort of the whole room. So that was quite interesting.
Amazing. I'm really glad you felt it was a worthwhile endeavour. How about you, Lee? Why did you apply to be a mentor?
Well, I guess Lindsay says it nicely that I'm kind of senior. I probably would say I'm older. I've been around for a bit, and I thought I had some experiences that could be useful to somebody younger. I'm involved in the technician commitment, so it was an opportunity to give back to our community, and also I think I kind of know my area of expertise. Genomics, kind of science technicians probably better than I do other areas of the university. It was an opportunity to meet somebody new, and to learn from them as well. So I also got a lot out of it. I found a fantastic technician, Lindsay, somebody who it was interesting to me. It was interesting hearing her problems and successes and learn from those, so I can pass those on to others. I think I probably struggled a bit. It's the first time I've ever done mentoring, and I've never been mentored either. So there were lots of things we were talking about where I'd want to jump in and say, Lindsay, you must do this. And I had to kind of hold myself back because I could see all the great things Lindsay was doing, and I had to kind of try to let her kind of talk through things. And I don't think I was very good at that in the end. I think I was always jumping in too much.
No, I think I needed that.
But, you can kind of see from Lindsay's chat today, kind of, her potential and how great she is.
Absolutely.
It's really exciting to be a very small part of that journey over that last year. And I volunteered again for this second year, and this time I've been partnered with somebody from a different university, which is also exciting and has its own challenges as well. I'm glad I started off with somebody within our university, because I felt like at least I knew the kind of layout of the university and could help a bit there.
That's great. It sounds like a really good match between the two of you for your mentorship, and it's worked really well. It's a good program. It's nice. It's nice that it's between all the universities in Edinburgh. You're branching out to different areas where you wouldn't normally go, and chatting to people you wouldn't normally chat to. And
yeah, I think there was quite a lot of uptake on people wanting to be mentees, and not so many people wanting to be mentors. So I guess the scheme will be re-released at some point this year. So do look out for those opportunities, especially if you think you could be a mentor for somebody, and don't think that mentoring has to be this really big thing, that you have to be a really fantastic, I don't know, high grade or anything. I think we've already heard from Lindsay there that she's going to be acting as a mentor for the teaching qualification. And, so, you can do it at different levels, so do think about volunteering.
I was actually involved in the pairing, actually, of this year's mentors. So, yeah, I remember, I actually know your mentee, Lee. Yeah. So I was like, I was like, that's going to be a great match. So that was actually quite a surreal process. I was sort of sitting there like, do I actually really belong in this meeting of like matching people up? But no, it was good.
It's good. So it sounds like it's opening some doors for you as well, being part of it. You did your presentation at the launch this year and then helped with the matches. So that's brilliant. So there's been some parts of being technician that weren't quite so great, so rosy. Do you want to share one or two of those specific challenges?
I know some of everything I've sort of been saying is quite positive, and it has mostly, but I think one of the things I sort of noticed, especially when I sort of moved over to become a clinical skills technician, I think I suffered quite a lot of imposter syndrome, and I should mention the staff hadn't really, like the other technicians had been in their roles for like a really long time, with possibly the youngest only being there sort of like for eight years. So I did sort of come in and like I didn't really sort of really feel that like I sort of belonged in this role, and I did sort of really struggle at first. It is also part of the reason why I did sign up to become a mentor, and that was one of the issues that I think we talked about, Lee. That was sort of something I did sort of struggle with, and being sort of not from a veterinary background, but everything being, I was like, how many needles do we have? I was like, was it different from small animal to large animal? And don't get me started on anaesthetic machines. That was like a whole new learning process. You needed like a lot of help, and it did sort of seem like every day you needed support. And I think mentally you would come into your role and you'd be like, I'm going to get some stuff wrong, I'm going to need to ask for help again, and it is quite a hard process, and I think you just have to keep at it. And I think one thing, it was like a September or something, 9 months in the role, and I just like everything started to fall into place, and I think I was really glad when that happened and I could start to sort of like build on my role and feel a lot better about myself as well.
I'm really pleased that you were able to talk to Lee and go through that mentorship process, and everything started to come together for you. Is it better now? Are you feeling a bit more?
I would say it's a lot better. There are sometimes I am sort of standing there, and I use this example. I was sort of the second mark on a chicken exam, and I'm standing there in a scrub top and a mark sheet and a chicken next to me. I'm like, whoa, there's been a mistake here, what's going on? There are still times where I'm like, oh God, what am I doing? Do they think I know what I'm doing? But no, it has sort of got a lot better, and I think that when they give you opportunities to do these things, even though you don't really think you know what you're doing, you actually do, and your seniors do trust in you to be able to do the role.
Yeah, I think imposter syndrome is more common than we think, especially when we're the ones feeling it. And we're like, oh my God, do I really belong here? But then the person standing next to you might be feeling the same thing as well. And everyone does. You know what you're doing, you're good at your job, and it certainly sounds like you love your job.
So if you could give a piece of advice to someone considering a job as a clinical skills technician, what would it be?
Well, first off, if you're not from a sort of veterinary background, I would definitely say give it time. I probably didn't speak to enough people as well, and just sort of, like, not everybody knows, like, we've got a new person, but they don't always necessarily know your own background. They might just assume you know it. So I think it's just sort of being a bit, like, honest, and it's maybe something I didn't do enough of in my early days, and being like, I'm not from, like, a veterinary practice. Can you sort of talk me through this? I don't actually know what a cannula is. I'm not actually really sure what I'm doing here. So I would definitely say give it time and talk to people. I used to go actually in the classes as a student. Obviously, you need to let the academic know so they don't actually think you're a student. I've had that problem once, and just sort of keep at it. And I think, there is going to be difficult times, and I think everyone as a technician sort of throughout their career have had difficult times. But sort of the good times always sort of outweigh the bad times, and sort of just keep at it, keep pushing yourself in a way. And if you are from a veterinary background, and if sort of all this stuff isn't new, then I think sort of the best piece of advice would just be to go for it, because you've got doors that are open, that are going to open really quickly for you, and you can go far.
What is the most rewarding part of your job? What keeps you passionate? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
I like helping people, and whether that's students, staff, the support staff to the students as well, the admin team. I like helping people, and so the more I can help people, the sort of happier I feel in a way.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. It's been amazing having you on and getting to talk about your job and you and what you get up to every day.
Thank you, Lindsay.
No worries.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Technically Edinburgh. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Lee Murphy, Imogen Hurd and Nick Kelly for their help in getting this podcast started. And of course to our incredible guests. Recognition and visibility are two of the key areas of the Technician Commitment and Initiative led by the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy. It's so important to us that we make sure that technicians behind the research get the recognition and visibility that they deserve. And we hope this podcast is one small step towards that goal. Technically Edinburgh is hosted and edited and produced by members of the University of Edinburgh Technician Steering Committee. The music in this podcast is from Pixabay.com. Please follow us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on X at UOE Technicians, and don't forget to tell your friends and colleagues. Have us on obnoxiously loud in your lab so everyone can hear. Oh, and if you have any ideas for topics, would like to come along and chat with us, or even think you might like to have a go at hosting, please get in touch at technician.network@ed.ac.uk. Thanks again to our amazing guest, our brilliant co-hosts, and you for listening. See you next time.